never be in question.
You're never going to find worthiness outside of self.
You're willing to have the hard conversations. You're willing to look in the mirror. You're willing to take accountability. The work to be able to do that, to heal this, to do that takes work. It can be very painful.
I can't go out with my friends and do the same things. I can't travel. I don't want to feel like right? I don't want to be that guy. Well, then who am I? Well, then that means now you're in the best place possible, at least in your becoming. And because in life, I feel like sometimes it doesn't matter what we do. Eventually we're on our knees, and it puts us in a place of being humble and a place of losing everything.
Deepest levels of love are earned. Welcome to the Burn Up Podcast. To say that I'm not stoked for today would be a lie. I'm super excited. I've got Dalton Locke with me today. Dalton, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You know, Dalton and I met a couple of years ago, briefing at an event. I think it was a Limitless event. You had a booth there, and then we've reconnected here recently and follow him on social. And just the way his brain works, the way there's a lot of synchronicities in the way we see the world, life experiences. Dalton's a very successful entrepreneur, visionary. He's got his own podcast, Spiritual Capitalist, very successful in the Kratom space in mid-45. Tell us about your AI that's Pono that's launching here.
Pono AI's goal and intention is to give founders and entrepreneurs and CEOs their time back, meaning give them their Fridays back. And the way that we do that is we help them. We plan, we manage, we grow. And it's a full-on operating system that really takes out a lot of the guesswork. So we're not trying to figure out how to prompt, how to do AI, how to do any of that stuff. It's simply just you ask it questions. It helps you solve your biggest problems. And that's what most of us are trying to figure out, and then gives us executable, plan.
I was invited to the Innovator Table last night, which was incredible. And you're going to see here on this podcast just his energy, the way Dalton looks at the world, sees the world. And one thing that we both agree on that I talk a lot about, on other episodes and on social is really at the end of the day, especially for those that are business owners and thriving to succeed in business and wealth and success, ultimately who you are as a man or a woman really will ultimately determine the success and the level of which you can get. There's so much work. It's an inside job more than anything. And I kind of want to just jump into just even the idea of spirituality and business together, right? Sure. I mean, that is your podcast. Honestly, it's the way you actually address business. It's the way you addressed last night. You hinted at it a little bit, but I want to go a little bit deeper there, of spirituality in the business world. What is that for you?
I think the conversation of spirituality or something bigger than ourselves. I always say there's something bigger than ourselves working in the background, right? It's like co-creating with us on some level. And the thing is most businesses in our boardrooms and so on, we don't bring that essence into the boardroom, right? We don't bring that into our day-to-day operations because we think that, it's algorithms and it's just all of these different things. And so we're giving all this energy to the outside world instead of to what the real world is our inner world. And when I talk about spirituality in business and capitalism, to me, it's more about, as a founder, what is the inner journey that you're going on? Because that inner journey is going to be your perception, but it's also going to be the output of what you experience in life.
Did you have a quote unquote spiritual awakening? Is there a certain moment? Is there something that happened? Was there a catalyst that led you in that direction? Religion is for those that are scared of hell. Spirituality is for those that have already been there, right? And I believe the greatest way to enhance, or really the only way, the catalyst to actually have the strongest spiritual connection is through pain. It's through the rupture. It requires a rupture in order to be truly, fully spiritually aligned. And it's the continual rupture of peeling the layers back in order to actually connect with source, God, whatever that is for you.
Absolutely. I think the thing that we miss in that conversation, though, right, is that when we look at consciousness, we come into this earth as consciousness. We don't, like a baby, you don't tell it what it is. Meaning it doesn't tell itself what it is. It has no idea. But what ends up happening is our families, our environment, all that stuff tells us who we are. So we start to get all these massive labels around us, right? Like I'm a good boy. I'm, I'm smart, or I'm dumb, or I'm tall, or I'm fat, or I'm skinny, or whatever it is, right? So these are all these different labels that we put around us, and we continue to put more and more labels, and they start to stack up deeper and deeper and deeper. And all of a sudden, when we look outside of our own image, we start to see all of these labels everywhere. And so that must be who I am. And through doing, as you would say, going through the pain, it's not about going through the pain, it's about going through those cracks, as you would say, to remove all the labels, to get back to consciousness. And if I am consciousness and energy is always existing and never dying, and I am part of all things at all times, then who am I not to be? And so, but when we stay in these places of all these labels and all the things that we are supposed to be or not supposed to be, that's where we get all mixed up. And then if that's the case, if we are consciousness, then that means we're also co-creating with consciousness. And that's the place I think we miss, because when I was about 13, 14 years old, my mom, and I've talked about this a few times, my mom, we were LDS. My dad wasn't LDS, but he'd go to church. And about 13, 14, I started asking questions, like deeper questions when I would go to Sunday school. Nobody could ever answer them. And so don't know why, don't know how. I remember walking up to my mom at 13, 14 and saying, hey, question. She said, what's going on? And I looked at her and she was opening up the fridge, and I'll never forget this. Little TV's playing above it. This is the 90s. And I can remember the smell of the food in the kitchen. And she goes, what do you want, honey? And I said, if I was born a Jew, would I be a Jew? Which obviously caught her off guard. And she says, yeah. I don't know if I said Catholic or Muslim. I don't recall. But I said, okay, well, if I was born, in this situation, a Muslim, would I be a Muslim? And she said, yes. And all of a sudden, there was an awareness that happened at a young age where I went, I only have this belief system because this is all I know. What else is there? And that set me on what I would call my spiritual journey, which has been a lifelong path where every time I think I know something, I realize I know nothing. And every time I think that I'm close to God, the creator, the universe, whatever it is, I also realize how far away I am for it. And every time I pretend to think that I know more than somebody else does, and I feel connected to that, and I start to talk about that and preach on what someone should do, I don't know why, but that piece is ripped away.
There's so much power in what you just said. The minute we feel like we know something, and then the realization that, oh my gosh, I don't, right? A lot of times there's ego attached to that. People have a hard time being wrong, right? Their identity's tied to it. Mentioned later the labels, right? It's the peeling away of detaching the labels of what we thought we were, what we thought we believed, and then it's layered. But being okay not knowing, or being like, hey, I know this, and then when I'm like, wait a minute, I actually was wrong, or there's actually more to this, especially the last several months, I've call it my ego pride. I'm like, I'm going to figure out how this universe thing works. And and the aha is I figured it out, and you actually just spoke to it. It's like, I'll never figure it out. It's the mystery, and accepting the mystery, and being, I don't know, and being curious, and being open, and being, willing to be presented with new ideas and new possibilities. One thing I do believe is there's endless possibilities, an infinite amount that we can't even begin to comprehend. And when you start to dance and play in that, it's pretty fascinating what comes into your life.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So you think about it from a Masonic terminology. I believe they call it the great architect, right? Well, I don't know how to be an architect, so I'm not sure about that. Or the great mystery, or the creator, or whatever. But we can see in all of these terms that are being used throughout history, we're talking about something is creating. And so in that, when you talk about the mystery of things or staying in the unknown, everything that we do, even if I look at the success of our company, we couldn't have planned it. Sure, you could do some financial modeling and you go backwards and you put a business plan together, but it's kind of the conversation. Again, I'll lean it back to my mom, and she used to tell me, when you make plans, God makes plans. And every time I think I know better, or I've got something figured out, or I've come to a place of arrival with money or relationships, or whatever that thing might be, I get humbled so quickly that things I didn't even expect to happen happened. And at the same time, the things I didn't expect to happen in a good way happens as well, right? And I think the more I give weight, and more I give focus, and more I give gratitude, because gratitude determines your latitude in life, the more that those things show up in my space constantly. I've seen so many miracles this week that have worked in such unique, beautiful ways that I stand in such awe about. Even last night when we were in the room together, our energy that we put into a room, if there's a bunch of us, it helps lead holding the container, it helps kind of lead the room. But then the magic happens between people when they start to share and they start to open up. And so we're all kind of creating this really cosmic soup in a way, but that's on a really small, microscopic level. But now we're doing that on a much larger level. So our frequency is really what is determining everything around us. But then we also believe that our frequency and who we are and our plans and all this stuff, that we're the ones making everything happen. But just what if there's something much bigger than ourselves that we don't have to name, we don't have to define, we don't have to give rules to, good boy, bad boy, whatever that thing might be. If I don't do something right, then I have sinned, aka to miss the mark from the head of God. If that's the case, then I also get to believe that the co-creation is also working on my behalf. And the path it might take me, no different than the darkness that you have gone through, the things you have lost, the tragedy you've gone through, the divorce, the things that would bring most men to their knees, which it's supposed to. is actually working for us. But that's really, really difficult, especially when we're in the storm.
You know, again, this being such a, I would say part of your mission, if you will, as a man, right? In incorporating and working with the spiritual, the consciousness, what would you tell somebody that's the whole concept or idea of spirituality is new, or to them, you know, they're either raised, you know, I as well was raised LDS. So you've got someone that's LDS, Mormon, Catholic, Protestant, whatever, that's their understanding of what spirituality is. It many times is tied to a religion, or don't even understand the concept. You know, how does someone even go down that path?
That's a great question. So the thought for me is, I think of the word awe, like awness. How do you explain awness? And what I mean by that is, let's say you're standing on top of a mountain and the sunset's coming in, and you get to see this great big beautiful painting being put over a city or wherever you're at, or over the ocean. You stand in a place of awness, a place that you can't describe, you don't really understand, but you know. You know there's a knowing. Just like if we look inside of our body, we're incredible. I mean, our skin and our organs and our veins and our heart and our brain and how our organs all work together, like everything is working together. And so I think in order to even understand spirituality, and I don't think there's any understanding of it, you have to also be very, very humble and realize that you are part of all of this, and it is all part of you. And it is that honest where I believe that the divine lives. And it's listening to like the birds, and it's listening to the sound of the wind, and it's just paying attention and being aware and taking ourselves out of all of this to be present, to be able to listen. You know, you talked last night when we were talking to a gentleman that was just going through it, young kid. He's trying to figure out his way. You know what I mean? He's just started his own business, and he's got all these things going on. And you said to him one major thing: take 30 minutes in stillness. Simple, difficult.
Oh,
Because in the chatter, the fears, all that stuff comes up, but it's just sitting in that stillness. And I think spirituality for so many people is different. I mean, it could still be tied to God, Jesus Christ, Buddha, Allah, you know, and on and on and on and on and on. But it's, where do you find your energy? Where do you find your belief outside of yourself? Where do you find places that, you know, I mean, really, so the easiest way to get into spirituality, it just clicked to me: service. Serve your fellow human being, and you will feel a place that you feel good. Why is that? There's something there. There's something still. There's something speaking that we're here to serve each other.
Yeah, and because it always feels like
Always.
when you're helping somebody, you're doing something. You know, it's like we get as much out of it as the person that we're helping.
Correct. I mean, last night when we were at the Innovators Table, you know, my organization, we pay for that dinner. I'm not asking for anything. Anybody give us anything? We don't care. Obviously, if we can work with those people and help them, that's great too. But I just love watching people come together. I love watching people come into a room, quiet, not knowing each other, not knowing what to doing, having a wonderful meal, not like it's coming from a buffet or something, but having a really good meal and opening up in a way that they're connecting to each other. And then they start to see another thing, and that is that we are all very much the same. But we're all hiding behind our mask. We're all hiding behind our platitudes, and we're hiding behind our degrees, and we're hiding behind our cars and houses and clothes and whatever. But if you strip us all down to our core without all of those titles, you get real clear that we're all kind of the same.
One of the things I've always appreciated since I met you is you just say what you feel, right? And even last night, it's like, hey, listen, I'm going to just tell you how I feel. Like, and you were very direct with, you know, one of the, you know, young entrepreneurs that was there. And I appreciated that. And it's interesting. You talk about masks. So my default for most of my life is like, I wouldn't always say what I felt, right? I was worried what the other person was going to think. What do they think of me? Am I going to hurt feelings or what, you know, whatever it was. And it's like, especially for men, like most men in one form or another, and I would say maybe we all do from time to time, but it's like we wear a mask to try to show up a certain way. And the reality is, once you can actually take it off, like it's uncomfortable, especially when you start doing it for the very first time. But then it becomes more freeing, and then the authenticity comes from it. And one of the things that I have found as I've continued to remove most of my masks is the peace, the inner peace that I have as a man, and the confidence that I have in just who I am. it's freeing. And it was interesting hearing some of the conversations, some of the people last night. You can see the mask the minute they start talking.
10 seconds. Yeah, it's all based upon my degree, who I am, my business, my job, my whatever it is, right? The reason I do that is selfish. I want to be very clear on that. There's two reasons I do that. The one reason I do that is because I truly believe that love is not always telling people what they need to, or what they want to hear. It's what they need to hear, because that's the only way someone's going to grow. And maybe someone in their life has never said that. Like you saw last night, the clicking in that room where people are like, oh, a lady was running her business. All of a sudden she decides that's not what she wants to do. Another gentleman is, that's not the intention of any of this stuff. But if we don't speak our truth, if we don't speak from those places, we're not going to allow someone to open up. And when we see things, if we don't really say what we see, that light's never going to be shined, because when they see it, it clicks. There's this aha, beautiful moment that happens. The other reason I do that too is because I don't want to be around a bunch of fake fucking people.
Yeah.
And if I don't want to be around fake people, and if you don't like who I am, you don't like my vibration, you don't like what I talk about, you don't like my intensity, you probably shouldn't be friends. And so I would much rather separate people out of my life that are not going to be someone that I get along with, versus just basically attracting people and trying to look good and all that stuff. Because, that's what I like about you is you're authentic, you're real, you're those things. And for some people, you're going to rub people wrong.
Oh no, I trigger people all the time.
For sure you do.
I think
when we first met you, there was a part of me, I remember telling Ballet that you kind of triggered me a bit. And I was like, what the fuck is that about? And the thing is because I saw myself in you.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Like, that's awesome. But I'm not going to hide from that. I'm actually going to be like, okay, let's see. We can talk back and forth a little bit. And I was like, oh man, this guy, I was wrong. And I think that is another thing people don't want to do. They don't want to admit they're wrong. Because if I admit I'm wrong, then all of a sudden that means then, it devalues myself.
Well, it goes back to the worthiness. Like even I think you addressed it to one of the people that were speaking last night, and it's like I saw it, and then you just spoke to it. It's like that at the end of the day, all the things that they were saying, they didn't feel worthy of it.
Right.
And it's a choice. And I talk about this a lot with the men that I work with. I talk about it all the time on social. Is like for me, and it took me up until literally 2 years ago to like overwrite that old program, if you will. But to me, we are worthy, period. There is no asterisk. There is no fine print. Like it's just, as human beings, our worth should never be in question.
No,
ever.
No. We look for worth out here.
Yeah.
Like we're like, oh, if I have this thing, I am worthy to be loved, which is what we all want, is to be loved. Or I'm even worthy to love myself, or the things I did in the past, because everybody has their shit that they wish they wouldn't have done. And if they learn from that, they're like, okay, cool, but I'm always looking for this worthiness. But the thing is, you're never going to find worthiness outside of self. You're never going to find worthiness in anybody else, even your partner, your girlfriend, your kids, nothing. The only way for that to happen is to start to feel worthiness. I am worthy. And if someone's having a hard time like really digging into that, it's just like continuing to, what does worthiness feel like? Like you said last night to that lady, you said, hey, like tell me about the old version of yourself versus the other version of yourself. And so then it becomes like, I saw this a while ago, and it's like the worthiness that I actually feel inside. What does that worthiness feel like? Okay, what would it feel like if I felt worthy, right? Putting myself in that situation, and then telling myself the old story of what I felt like when I was unworthy. And why is that important? Because we all want to tell about our past. So if I tell the story of like, when I felt unworthy, I was this, and this is what I did, and this is how I felt, and all this stuff. But now that I am worthy, this is how I feel, and this is where I'm at. And this is why I stand in such great gratitude every single day, because I feel worthy of my own love, my own respect. Who gives a fuck what anybody else thinks? Because everybody else is walking around with the same problems anyways. Pointing fingers, not realizing those pointing fingers, there's 2 or 3 pointing back all the time. And
and
it takes a while to get there.
And then the other level, right, in success. And I tell my boys this, I tell myself this, and it's like, yes, you're worthy of anything and everything you want, period. But success in love, in wealth, in business, whatever, is earned.
It's a price.
It's a price. There's a price to pay. And I would even argue, I've had with my partner, we've had these conversations. She kind of laughs at it. And I'm like, my belief is there's levels and layers, even to love and intimacy. And the levels of love, like to continue to reach it, and frankly, have to be earned. Meaning, you're willing to have the hard conversations. You're willing to look in the mirror. You're willing to take accountability. Like the work to be able to do that, to heal this, to do that takes work. It takes effort. It can be very painful. But as you push through that, they say love is given freely. Well, yes, but to actually hit the levels that I argue, and I would say this is like, I actually have never said this like on a podcast or in social, but I think the deepest levels of love are earned.
For sure. Love has condition. We pretend that it doesn't have conditions. Yes, we can love unconditionally. However, if someone punches you in the face enough times, there's a condition to it, right? There's certain boundaries to it. If we look at anything in life, it's so interesting because there's this world of manifestation that believes if we just manifest, hold our arms open, and things will just happen. Maybe that's a possibility, but I believe as I am co-creating with the divine, I am walking towards. So here's the divine, and it's holding the goals or that energy is, and I am also doing the same thing, but I'm doing my part too. So I'm walking, and we're walking together, and we're gonna eventually come together at this point in time. I don't know when, I don't know how, I just know it's going to happen. There's no difference than someone that decides they're going to go work out. Fat, overweight, well, wait, you might have to change your diet. You got to get up earlier. You got to go to the gym. You got to lift heavy things. There are a lot of things that you're going to need to do if you want those results. And love is the same way. And business is the same way. Like there is nothing freely given, because I think the other side of it too is that when we ask for something, the universe, God, or whatever you want to call it, is going to say to you, how bad do you want this? Yeah. And if you want this, guess what? There's going to be trials in between here. But if you're willing to push past the shit, if you're willing to go into the darkness, you're willing to do these things, then everything shifts. I mean, medicine or psychedelics is the same thing. Like you do the work, the first thing is you put whatever it is in your mouth, and, with it's something like ayahuasca or mushrooms or whatever that thing might be, it's uncomfortable. It is not comfortable. It is some of the hardest work I've ever done with the most rewarding light at the end of the tunnel, But then again, then you get into that place in time is like not having an external source to be able to get that light, meaning, no, it's within me. I am part of it. But we were talking about before kind of the forgetting of all this stuff. But that is the magic in it, though. Like you're not supposed to remember all the time.
No, not at all. And
even though we want to.
and I echo what you said, because I again, whether I speak it, whether I think it's like, okay, I want this or I'm going after that, I believe my experience, and I've seen it in my life and other people's lives, is like the universe will actually present us with the opposite. It will present us with resistance almost in many cases immediately. And it's almost like God's like, okay, you want it? Prove it. Prove it to you. It's really about proving it to you and you. Like, are you willing to do this? It's the resistance. It's like, and then it's pushing through the resistance. My tagline, freedom's in the fire. What we want is on the other side of what we're resisting. Everything we want's on the other side of the fear. Fear's a calling. And so when you can start to learn to play with it and start to understand how these things work, I believe the two greatest things that God gives us, frankly, are pain and fear, because they're activators. It's like we don't grow when we're comfortable. If we're in this constant 24 hours a day, existential, orgasmic state all the time, we'd go crazy.
I agree. We do have to be really careful, I believe, though, of not become like, how do I say this? Let me think of the right way. You have the guys like David Goggins, right?
Yeah, I agree with,
And they're pushing through the pain and pushing through the pain and pushing, and everything is pain, and it has to be hard and it has to be difficult. Says who? That's also part of our story too, right? And I get in the same story, so I understand that one really well. But like, who am I without that story of pain and suffering is what I need to do. It's pain and suffering is optional. You know what I mean? Growth is necessary, though.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to further articulate that, take working out, right? You've seen me, I've lost now close to 140 pounds.
Way to go, man.
Yeah, it's, but I remember I was paying a coach 7 years ago, whenever I started this 8 years, like $6,000 a month. And literally I'm having conversations like, how do I get my gym bag ready in the morning? I'm here making millions of dollars, but I mentally couldn't even get my gym bag ready in the morning. I mean, it was the craziest thing to look back on where I was. That was very hard, and now as I continued to work through that, something that was very hard, very painful, very emotionally trying, it now just is who I am. Yes, there's effort. I don't want to go work out half the time. I just do it because it is. So the pain is the activator to get to me a certain point. And I agree with you. That doesn't mean I need to be in a constant state of pain and just keep pushing it, because again, it's a choice. But at the same time, when we hit if you will, a roadblock, or we hit a ceiling, it's uncomfortable. That's the activator to get. Doesn't mean we're always going to stay in that constant state of pain. But what I have found with especially with men, is when men hit the resistance, they don't want to feel it. And that's many times where they turn to addictive patterns, to addictive behaviors.
Oh, all the time. Yeah, I mean, like when I would get to places like that in my life, I would drink, smoke weed, whatever it was, right? Was anything, porn, whatever. It was always something to avoid.
Yep.
Because sitting with myself was difficult. And sometimes it still is. There's no place where I've saw this and got all this shit figured out. It's always a new level. There's always another level of uncomfortability, right? So thinking a lot about like with you and what you do as far as how you work with men and how you mentor men and how you are able to get them through another level of transformation, right? So we're always just transforming. And sometimes we think we have to do this alone, but often because we're men, we think we have to, but we don't have to. Like, with what you do with men is how you assist them to transform to more than anything. You're not actually helping them transform. The more I think about it, you're helping them to see themselves.
Yep.
What's already there.
It's already there. I'm just a guide, if you will. It's just leading them back to them and speaking the truth and just own this and move on. Yep. There's consequences, positive and negative, but it's like, once you can get to the core of it, the truth, integrity, like everything changes. And then just understand that you're the common denominator in all the parts of your life. You are playing a role.
The most important people in our life, I think, you know what they do? And I just heard this as we were sitting here. They help walk us through our becoming, whether it's our becoming with our beloved, whether it's our becoming through our body, whether it's our becoming through our businesses or our community or, whatever it is that we want to become in our exploration of this experience as humans, because this is just an experience and we're experiencing all the time, and we're experiencing, the darkness, we're experiencing the light, we're experiencing all of these things. And you were talking, about how everything we go through the darkness, right? We go through the shadow. I heard the most wonderful thing one time, speaking of this, and it was this, is that the Tibetans, they have temples. And in some of those temples, they have these gargoyles that look like demons. And in those demons, they're holding a box. And what they're actually holding is the light. Because most people are not willing to go up there to actually, that's the most, why, like that, if you think about it, if you're going to hide the light from somebody, where do you hide it? In a place that nobody wants to go, which is so ironic if you think about it, because we think it's just so easy to obtain and keep, because once we have it, but then the illusion is that we think that that we're going to lose it, but it's always there. It's just the recognition, it's the gratitude, it's the prayers, the meditations, it's that going back to spirituality. Really, spirituality is standing in a place of gratitude for everything around you, realizing that you don't control any of this and that you're grateful to be part of this experience that chosen or whatever. But you're experiencing all of this and loving the pain and loving the light and loving love. And then in the darkest of places, which I continue to go through and have challenges all the time. People say, oh, this guy's successful. He drives this car, he has this house, or he does these things. That's just a piece of all of it. But we're always constantly being challenged. And it's, who am I in that challenge? And when do I crumble or when do I stand? And it's all just part of the becoming all the time.
Why do you think most people can't sit with themselves?
So what was it? Socrates said, I believe it was Socrates, I might be misquoting this, but like, man's greatest fear is to sit in a cave alone, right? With his own demons, his own thoughts. I think our minds, we have a lot of wild stuff in our minds, like all kinds of things, right? Like violence and perversion and all these things we're not supposed to have. And so I think it's that of all the intrusive thoughts. And so most people are not even aware they're intrusive thoughts. And so what they do is they tie themselves to their mind and to their brain, and they think that's who I am. So I don't want to be part of that. And so I'm going to continue to outwork that, outmove that, or whatever it might be.
Numb it
out, right? Instead of like looking at it and saying, oh, what is this trying to teach me? What is this trying to teach me? I saw a meme a couple of days ago. I thought it was powerful. It said, when you're meditating and your demons show up, have them meditate with you. Oh, wow, that's pretty profound. Because to say that we don't have demons is a lie. We all have demons. We all have these things. And we get to, most people don't know how, but we get to like become friends with it. Because once we do that, then we see it's part of us anyways. And that's kind of scary for people. And depending upon how you're raised and religions and so many things. And we're in a world right now to where, if you think about it, right now, someone might watch maybe 6 to 9 to 10 minutes of this podcast. They might watch an hour, but the average watch time on most media right now is so little. It's so little because people's attention span is constantly being asked for. It's being begged for. It's being, the clickbaits and all that crap that's happening. You're constantly getting that dopamine fix. So all of a sudden you go from this dopamine fix every single day with everything around you from, everything is so instant and easy and I can get it fast. But sitting with myself is going to take time. It's going to take slowing down my breath. It's going to take being aware, but also not so aware that I'm tied to my thoughts, but I'm actually letting my thoughts pass and just see them as they are, as just thoughts, like like you were to flip a TV screen. But to sit in that space for too long is really uncomfortable because everything around us is taking our attention every single day.
Yeah, when I was first introduced to meditation years ago, meditate, and I couldn't sit still for 3 minutes. And then it was a guided meditation. So someone's talking me through it. I could do that for a minute, then I'm wandering off, and over time, as I continue to practice it, and today when I'm off, like energetically, emotionally, like something's off, it's like my default in the past would be, I'm going to get on social. I'm going to go keep myself busy. I'm going to go eat something. I'm going to go do whatever. And now it's like, I gotta get quiet and meditate, and then I can just recenter. And just come back to my breath. There's so many tools that we have just as humans beings that we don't even, again, because of all the noise, the world's full of it. I had a really cool experience, mentioned plant medicine, big advocate. And I was in sometimes when in ceremonies, I'll have specific questions that that I'm searching for answers. And there was one particular ceremony I was in, and it's like, boom, okay, what do you want to know? And I just got questions. Answers just like without doubt, like boom. And then literally, in that's like the thought, the voice, if you will, was like, what else do you want to know? So I can't remember. I asked some random question, and it was, and then it's almost as if, God, divine was there, higher self was like, sorry, you don't get to know that. That's not how life works. You don't get to know everything, but you'll get more answers. But I heard very clearly, I'll never forget this, is you'll find more answers in silence and in prayer. And what was interesting, just understanding silence there. And you said this last night to one of the gentlemen that, that's working, 80 hours a week type guy. And it's like, that's where the answers are. And when you have to just sit with you and you, it's so uncomfortable at first, but then all of a sudden it becomes this grounding rod. It's like, it grounds me. Like it's like, I almost search for that now and appreciate the quiet, because answers come there, inspiration comes there, intuition. All the answers are there. They're already inside of us. They're not outside of us.
Yeah. Everything is always within. And I agree. Why do you think it's so hard for people to sit in quietness like that? What's your experience?
I echo what you said. I think a big part of it is, it's the noise, it's the story, and because if they have to sit with their thoughts, most people's default is a negative thought process in the way they see themselves.
Yeah.
So they're sitting there and it's like, I don't have time for this. I got to be doing more. I'm not enough, or whatever, that negative chatter. And so like that chatter just takes over, and it's a way of, they can't sit in that because it numbs them out. It's like the people that can't go to bed unless they're on their phone, or they got to listen to a show, or they got to do this, and just to be able to just sit with yourself. And if you're not okay with who you are as a person, you're not going to be okay sitting alone. And again, to me, when if I hear the chatter or something's going on, that's a sign to me that like something's off. I've got some work. I need to look at this. What's off? What anxiousness, a lot of anxiety will come up. And not to say that people that have chronic anxiety, but more often than not, anxiety is the body's way of saying, hey, you're not following through on something, or you have a commitment you haven't followed through on, or there's something that I have not done that I've either told someone or I told myself that. I find that my anxiousness is because of me not fulfilling or following through on commitments that I want to make. So when I get anxious, I remember years ago, I was taking anti-anxiety. I was taking all sorts of stuff. Today, it's like, okay, what do I need to do? I almost appreciate it, even though I don't want to feel it. It's uncomfortable, but I almost welcome it, because it's like, I want, the way I explain just in life in general along this term is, I've bowled enough gutter balls in my life. Like, I'm done. So, taking bowling, I want bumper rails. So as a little kid throws it down and bounces back and forth, I'm okay with, if I get stung, like, ooh, and then the ball, maybe there's a little overcorrection to the other side. I'm okay with getting stung. I'll take a 1st-degree burn. I don't want any more 7-degree burns. So I listen to the body, I listen to the intuition, and I welcome it. And this is coming from someone that for most of their life could not sit still or quiet and was constantly feeding this.
You talked about anxiety, right? You said not there's people out there that don't have chronic anxiety. So I used to have pretty chronic anxiety and would take all kinds of things. That doesn't mean I still don't have anxiety, by the way. But I would take all kinds of things for it, numb it out, whatever. Also, the time I used to drink. Also, the time I used to have bad habits with food. Also, the same time I wasn't moving my body. I think it's the body's voice in what we're doing to our body. And then it's also recognizing excitement versus anxiety because of the same emotion, the same feeling. When I come onto this show, believe it or not, I'm like, oh, I got some anxiety about this. But that's a good thing because I can utilize that anxiety and not push through it, but also just kind of like use it and play with it, right? And be like, okay, like, what is this about? Why am I feeling this way? Okay, well, I want to look, not that I want to look this way, but I want to make sure I do a really good job. And I want to make sure that I show up and I want to make sure I bring value. Okay, that just makes me a little more over-prepared. You know what I mean? Like mentally and emotionally. But I know for myself, for a fact, whether people do trainings where they start to dive in really deep into the unconsciousness of things that happen to them between, I was talking about this last night, before birth, during birth, after birth, but usually from about 0 to 5, something happened, something occurred that created some form of control, some form of fear, some form of not enough, some form of not loved, whatever it is. And that has created this mechanism of our attachments. And that mechanism then creates more anxiety. Yep. Until we deal with this part, that doesn't go away. Psychedelics, same kind of thing. When we deal with this part, I don't mean psychedelics from going and getting fucked up on the weekends. I mean intentional, deep ceremonial work, right? Like very clear the difference of those. But in that process, I think that's where we can remove a lot of that anxiety to where it feels like it's overbearing or like we can't move or whatever. I was watching something recently on a podcast, and they talked about how getting a runner's high, what it's actually doing is creating the body's natural cannabinoids. So we have all the medicine within us. Yeah. We don't have to externally go find any of this stuff. But we do need to keep cleaning out all the junk constantly because it's like our environments are constantly feeding us junk, whether we like it or not. And so it's when we meditate or go within or communicate or sit with community or have conversations like this, it's a way to be able to just kind of clean out that junk, to be able to move it out and not have to hold everything internally, which is why people get sick.
I mean, you and I are both big advocates and have experience with plant medicine and psychedelics. And, when I first got into it, it cracked me open, excited talking about it with everybody, and, sure. And as I've gotten more and more sure with myself, I mean, I'm still, my advocacy for it hasn't changed.
Right.
But I'm much more selective is when I decide to talk about it or even invite somebody to do that. And, the spiritual community, I put in quotation marks for those that aren't watching this, like is a broad term. And there's a lot of people and, somebody will do 1 or 2 experiences and now all of a sudden they're a shaman. And, there's a lot of chaos that goes on in this space. But nevertheless, it can be a phenomenal modality or tool for those that feel called to it, that are ready for it. And from your experience, I mean, when is someone ready for that?
When is someone ready for it? I think when they fear it the most.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've not heard that answer.
Yeah, I think it's when they fear it the most because we talked about going in the darkness. We talked about going into that, right? You can't force anybody into it. Every time I go drink ayahuasca, when I know that I'm ready for it is when it starts showing up in my dreams and I start to feel like, not doing that. No way in hell am I going to go do that. That is when I know. And it's not like some like nice knock on the door, like, come with me, child. Like we have so much insight to share with you. It's when I feel that feeling of uncomfortability of like, oh, maybe this is the time to go do that. Like for me personally. And then I've led many people down that journeys. When I see people lean in with curiosity, when I see people say like, what is that? And I'll say these words. I'm like, It is the hardest thing that you will ever do in your entire life, but that's where the light is, and that's where you will fully feel, you can fully feel free. And to me, it's like when I go and I do medicine, there's only these the only intentions I focus on, and that is show me who I become, heal my heart, or no, show me who I become, merge me back with my soul, basically, and heal my heart.
Yeah.
Right? Those three for me are extremely powerful because it gets me back to the place in time from that 0 to 5 we talked about, to be able to observe and see what happened. And even though I've done this many, many times, I still see some of the similar things. But unlike it feeling like the first time where it was like a baseball bat and it just annihilated me, it's more like a little fly. That doesn't mean I don't physically go through it. Doesn't mean it's not difficult, but seeing those things is not the same. And then merging back with my soul, it's like throughout our life, throughout our experiences, throughout the years, throughout the months, throughout the days, there are places inside of ourselves where we fall out of alignment with ourselves because we forget. We forget this is a joke. We forget that we're not our ego, or that we're not like the titles that we give ourselves because everybody else gives them to us. We forget all those things. And so it's the beauty of being able to let all those things go. And then from there, it's merging back with the heart, merging back with like coming back to the heart, being reborn, right? Like it doesn't have to be some grandiose thing, but the places I've had rebirths in, it's like stepping into a whole new version of self. And so for me, when I will go do this, I try to just find one, I don't want to say this, theme for the year. Like I'm not chasing anything. I'm not smoking weed. I'm not doing mushrooms. This is one time. It's very sacred to me. It's very intentional. It's preparation. Like it's work. And then I take that theme and I run with that theme all year long. And that theme will teach me all kinds of things. And it's usually not going to teach me what I thought it was going to teach me. I remember one time my theme was like non-attachment. All pain and suffering comes from attachment. Okay, cool. That means I'm not going to be attached to people, outcomes in business, partners. I'm not going to have a girlfriend. I'm going to have multiple girlfriends, like all this stuff. And I saw the fucking pain I caused in life. And it was not fun. It was actually the exact opposite of what I was trying to do. And then when I finally got back to it again, I was sitting with the medicine, and I said, "Hey, I thought I thought no attachments." And I was like, "Yes, but just not here. Like you're having this experience. You're never going to avoid pain. You're never going to avoid suffering. It's optional, but it's going to happen. But you need to know what to do with it when it happens. Like pain and suffering is optional."
The intensity of it is really, to me, I mean, pain, suffering, how long we stay in it. Again, it's the resistance to what is, and it's learning to accept what is. But yeah, I mean, I'm hearing you, and this is what I love about the medicine. It's like, hey, this is what my intention is going in and figure this out. But then you get to experience, you go down that path and go full circle. That it's like, actually, I don't want that. You know what I mean? It's just it's the beauty of life and how the universe works. I mean, I love it.
Well, and it's part of the game because you know how many people like. I remember growing up and asking my dad, like, "How's your day?" And he's like, "Same shit, same day." I was like, fuck that. Like, I don't want a life where I just go like, it's the same thing every single day. It's the same experience every day. I walk into the office, I push a button, and God bless my father because he provided a roof over our head and he took care of us and, you know, had all these things, but he didn't know the things that we have access to. He doesn't have that scope to be able to learn that stuff. Nor does he even want to go down that path. It's just not where he's at his age at 73 now, which is fine. But I knew for myself that I had to be the one that was going to break the chains of everything going on in my family. Like I knew that. And in order to do that, it meant finances. It meant different belief systems. I was talking to my brother a couple of days ago and he says, in our family, everybody knows and we come to you because you're different and you think different and you do things differently. Well, one thing you could think, well, that sounds kind of like a smack in the face. And the other side, you go like, oh, wait a minute, they're coming to me because I have broken all of these belief systems that we've held in our family. And that's the beautiful thing I think about medicine too, is I've got to sit with my grandfather and have beautiful conversations with him and say, hey, bro, like what you taught me, it's not exactly how this world works. And I know the love you gave it to me with, but your belief systems don't serve me. And then being able to watch all my family, all the women in my family sew a quilt. I remember being below it and they were sewing a quilt with all these threads of our lives and I could feel their tears of like their their dreams and the things that they wanted to do that they let go of, and the sacrifices they made for my family, and tying all this together as family and seeing just the duality of life. You know, we want to think it's one side or the other of this quarter, but on this side is darkness, on this side is light. In Masonics too, you have a temple or a pyramid, one side's dark, one side's light. You know, like this is in everything for ever and ever and ever and ever. It's just something we haven't really known in our existence. So I think it's so beautiful, the messages that come, that there is no way one human being on this earth could give me those messages and it would hit me the same way that would, even now as I talk about this was years ago, bring up so much emotion. And that is the beauty of this medicine.
I feel the same way. My boys have sat with it, you know, and I've seen their progression and the layers, and, you know, they're doing the work in their 20s. Can you imagine if we were introduced to this 20 plus years ago, where we'd be today? I mean, it's wild, you know.
But that's the whole thing, right? That's why you're the firewalker. That's why you walk the flames. That you had to do that first before your kids did, right? That is the goal. Warren Buffett said the investments we make today are not for us; they're for our future generations. So the investments we make into ourselves, and we make into our personal development, and we make into working with teachers and mentors, those investments, yes, they're for us. We get the impact of them, but it's the people that are watching us, because you can't lead people. That's the other thing. I used to think in life, if I had something figured out, then I would tell people and be an evangelist about it and whatever, but it never worked because I was trying to shove my messages down someone's throat. And then I heard one time that if Jesus Christ couldn't be like a messenger or a prophet in his own city, then what makes you think you can? Because he had to leave where he was from to be able to share his messages. And what I got from that the most is that the way that you impact the world, the way that if you want people to awaken or whatever that is, you just are who you are. And people say to you, and they look at you and they say, how did you do that? How did you learn that? Because when they say that when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yep.
The teacher's always fucking been there.
Yep.
It's just we haven't had the awareness to ask the right questions for someone to feel the freedom to open up.
No, I love that. You know, bring it full circle back into the business corporate world. You've had years of, you know, tremendous success in your own businesses and consulting, and, you know, launching Pono here, and, you know, Innovators Table, working with a lot of entrepreneurs. What's the common thing that you see, or do you see, with business owners? You know, that, you know, again, I think we said this at the very beginning where we talked about, at the end of the day, it's an inside job, right, in getting there. But do you see common themes with all the people that you've worked with that's holding people back, or whether it's a belief, whether it's an action, what's a behavior? I mean, are there like 2 or 3 things that kind of really stand out? It's like, I see this, I see that. It's almost like textbook when you finally, you know, within 2 minutes, you can tell already where they're at.
What I have found is most people build businesses based upon their traumas. Something inside of them they're building that they're so passionate about now. The people that find this passion, it's because they're trying to heal the oldest version of themselves. And they think, if I can do this thing, then I will save this person. For me personally, I got involved in the business that I'm in with Kratom in mid-45 because I saw the potential that it could help with addiction. And it was something that was really deep in my life. It was deep in my family. I saw people pass away from it. And I thought, man, if I could just find something, I could save these people. So there's that side. The other side is when I create money, then I will be, insert whatever word it is, loved, respected, whatever it is. And so most of those people, they're creating this level of success, and they're willing to not have relationships with their wives. And when we're talking about men, because don't worry, I'm working, and you should feel so happy that I am working and putting in these hours and doing these things because I do it for you. Maybe. And I see that from a family side of things, of course, with their kids not being present, with a lot of those types of things. And so a lot of times I see people that are really highly successful that don't do any of the internal work, that most of the time, their emotional bank account is like depleted completely, while their finances are really high. And so what they're doing is they're always trying to buy that emotional side. They're trying to buy those relationships. They're trying to buy all these things. A lady, I was just in Amsterdam, and she said to me, she says, you know what happens to most men that make millions of dollars? I go, what? And they said, that's when they find a wife. You know what happens to a woman once she makes millions of dollars with her husband? I said, what's that? She goes, that's when she divorces her husband. I was like, wow, that is two very different things. You know, one side is trying to buy love while the other one realizes they're trying to buy freedom. And it's like, okay, then how do we disseminate and co-create with that? The other thing I find too is that most men, that the reason that they're willing to do the work that you and I are willing to do, and I'm similar and so are you, is we look and we say, okay, if we get a business coach, if we get that coach, then they're going to help us and they're going to give us all these tactics and sales processes and marketing and whatever. And my business is going to be great. And I'm going to make more money and I'll be able to, buy the things, the toys, the stuff, the respect, whatever it is, the ego side of things. But then what ends up happening, at least in my experience, is if it's the right teacher, someone like yourself, someone's walked the fire, that's been there, that's lost everything, that knows, not from a textbook, from an actual reality, that is when that spiritual awakening happens. Because when they realize that everything going on in their company, the way they treat people, the way they treat their staff, whatever it is, that it has nothing to do with the company and it has everything to do with himself. And so business development is not about business development, it's about self-development.
Yeah. Yeah, you said that last time. I mean, I love that. Like, if I ever say that, I'm going to give you credit for that one.
Perfect,
No, it's
my belief.
But it's true. Like,
think about who you have become. I mean, you made ungodly amounts of money. You had the house, you had the thing, you had the wife, you had the prize, and then you lost it all. And then it's like, okay, well, I lost all this stuff. Well, then who the fuck am I now?
Oh yeah.
Who's my identity? Who am I tied to? I can't go out with my friends and do the same things. I can't travel. I don't want to feel like a fucking loser. I don't want to be that guy. Well, then who am I? Well, then that means now you're in the best place possible, at least in your becoming of the new version. And that is you're on your knees. And because in life, I feel like sometimes it doesn't matter what we do. Eventually we're on our knees, and it puts us in a place of being humble, in a place of losing everything. And like, cool, I got to rebuild myself. But do I want to rebuild myself into that same human being I was before? Chances are probably not, right? And so people kind of come to those places in life at unique places. And I think the youth right now is seeing more of that than when we ever saw that.
Oh, yeah.
We were raised on MTV. We were raised on Cribs. We were raised on Lifestyles of Rich and Famous. We were raised on, Trump. We were raised on all of these things that said that if I can, have enough stuff, if I can be this thing, then great, I'll be that. And that's the ego side of all that stuff. But business itself is beautiful, right? If you're building a product that's serving people, that's helping people, that you get excited about and you're thriving about, that is fun. It's so fun. You get to wake up and just have this really beautiful life of freedom and the opportunity to kind of move and flow, and you get to create your own life. That is autonomy, and that is agency, and that is creation, and that is almost godlike. But not godlike from a place of, omnipotent, like, oh, I'm so powerful, but just in the place of being able to create. And that, to me, I think is what most entrepreneurs are. We are creators in nature, and we're also extreme gamblers. Like, we might not gamble at the casino, but we are gambling all the time in business. And you're putting it on black. And there's something addictive about that. Whether we like it or not, there is a thrill in it because it makes us feel fucking alive.
Yeah, it's the thrill of the hunt.
Uh-huh.
I want to make sure we get some time here. Tell our listeners about Pono, because I think what you're building, I think is incredible.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's one of those things. It feels hard to explain at this moment in time because one, it's never been created before. But what happens with Pono is, let's say that you're running a business. You give us all your information about your business. Then what we do is we take all of that information and we build your own individual AI system. That AI system now has the ability to know everything about your company, what it does, how it interacts. And in that process, what we've realized is that most people sit in ideation all the time, every single day. They don't know what to do. They're not sure how to execute. And that's not just you. That's also your staff. When you look at statistics, most people work 2-3 days out of a week. I mean, really. Majority of the time, they're either researching, they're in meetings, or trying to figure out something. And now we know that there's so much information and knowledge through AI and in the internet. And I know there's a lot of companies been building AI, and I get it. We've been building this thing for 4 years. We're still not live. And what it really is, the main focus is to get people their Fridays back. It's to get people back into the things we were talking about just now. Really, the reason I built it originally was because I got sick and tired of sitting down with people that wouldn't take action. They'd ask me, hey, help me in my business. I'm like, great, here's what you're going to do. Here's how you're going to do it. And I would do it for free because I just wanted to see people win. And they wouldn't do anything with it. And I thought, this is a waste of my time. I like doing this. This is only helping me. It's giving me ideas, but this isn't really helping people. And so that was originally why I built it. And then as I started to go deeper into a lot of my own personal development, my own work, I thought, I'm not alone in the way that I view the world. I'm not alone as an entrepreneur. We need to get our time back because we're selling basically today for tomorrow. Well, what if tomorrow never comes? So it was, okay, well then how do we then start to quantify, and instead, how do we save 20, 30 hours a week from each team member? And also then how do we get the business owners so they're working on their business instead of in their business, or in their business instead of on their business, right? Or other way around, on their business instead of in their business. And so that's where that kind of came through. And then what's happened is I've started to have a lot of beta testers look at this, and they all just basically tell me this. They say, listen, what I love about Pono is the questions it asks, so I don't have to prompt it, but the questions it asks to get me to the thing I want. So whether it's any kind of business document I need, whether it's all of my project development, and then putting it into a smart board so you know exactly what to do. And now it's so much so that we're using a lot of the agents to do the work for them on their behalf. So we're taking time and we're condensing it down. And if you look at the word Pono, it means righteousness and balance. And our logo is really about this fourth dimension of work, because I believe if we're not careful, I believe that AI is absolutely going to steal more of our attention. It's going to keep us in a lot more confusion. It's going to have us doing a lot more ideation, and it's going to have a lot more separation. So what we've been working on before we launch this out is to make sure we have a mobile app so that people can be on the go and do what they need to do. And so we've invested a lot of time and money and energy and heart. And most of these, I would say, modules and the things that I have built inside of Pono with our team, I don't own it, man. It doesn't come from me. It comes from something much bigger than myself. Like, it comes when I ask a question, I meditate, I go to sleep, I wake up, and I'm like, okay, great. And then I just give it to the team. Like, I don't know where it comes from, but I know that these are tools that are absolutely going to change people's lives.
Yeah. And anticipated when you're thinking of the full launch? It's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's a loaded question, man. So we've had some soft launches that did not go really well. With development, what I find is every single time that I make a timeline with my developers, a day means about a week typically. So I've given them an extra month. So I believe in November we will launch all of that out.
Awesome.
That's really where we're at the moment.
And if there's other business owners and entrepreneurs to find out more about the Innovator Table, like
sure.
what?
So Innovators Table right now is primarily based in Salt Lake City. We will be looking shortly for people to help run and manage an Innovator Table themselves. But right now, if they're in Salt Lake City, they can just go to innovators.com, innovatorstable.com, and they can fill in their information. If they want to be invited to an event, they can see everything about it. But right now, though, we have 200 people. We're doing dinner every other week. And so we're pretty much sold out for the year at this point in time.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of marketing ahead of time. I was testing the market to see if it was going to work, if there was an interest. And what I found is that, and this is for anybody else listening, that if you want to create a business right now, anything that's going to create authenticity, that's going to create connection, that's going to create community, I think there's something there.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, you got to see the magic last night.
Yeah,
right?
it was awesome.
And I didn't know where it was going to go. And that's the beauty of that.
Yeah,
it was so fun.
Yeah.
You know? That was my fun last night.
Yeah. No, I was a participant, and I got to see your fun, and I saw the whole thing.
It was a lot of fun, man. It was a good time.
Well,
so
now, brother, dude, again, you and I could talk about all this stuff for hours,
forever.
And I honor your journey. I honor your transparency. I honor your authenticity. Something that I'm really attracted to in anybody. I don't care what the message is. I'm really good about, what do they say? Throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Like, when someone is being their authentic self, even if I don't necessarily connect with what somebody's, I honor the fact that it's not easy to be yourself. And know that you're going to take punches and people are going to come at you. But like, I have a lot of respect for you and how open and yeah, you just speak your mind. And it's, and for someone that for most of their life didn't, I just appreciate it so much more. And yeah, and I'm grateful that you took the time. I mean, it's an honor for me, and I can't wait to see what magic you continue to build. And yeah, so thank you, Dalton, for being with me today. And thank you for joining us on the Burn Up Podcast. We'll see you next time.